Again, thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Tom Cherian. I'm the Senior Director of Revenue Enablement at Own Backup. Somehow, I'm also, as a side hustle, an adjunct professor at the City College of New York. So I do that in the evenings. And then if I have any time left over, I have these two little girls that are kicking my ass. And so I am also doing my best to enable them. I always think that it's helpful whenever you're talking to someone in enablement, like where they previously came from. So I spent, prior to Own Backup, over a decade in enterprise sales, both as an IC and as a manager. So previously worked at Gartner, Yelp, maybe you've heard of them, Oxford Economics, and Simply Learn, to name a few. And if you'd like, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You could scan the code or search for Thomas Cherian, and you'll actually see like my two girls like as my wallpaper, which is pretty cool. All right, I won't go into, well, yeah, I guess it's a slide here. So we'll talk about the economy in a nutshell. We'll talk about ROI, how to prioritize, or I'll give you the framework to reprioritize your enablement priorities for the rest of this year, next year, and we'll wrap things up after that. So, disclaimer, full-blown disclaimer. And I have to do this every time I present at the SEC or anywhere else. I do happen to drop an F-bomb or two, so if you are offended by cursing, I apologize in advance. I'm not cursing at you, I'm cursing with you. Sounds good?
Yes.
Yes. Fuck yes. All right. So I'm sorry, I'm like this at work too, and they haven't fired me yet. Is this being recorded? It is. All right. All right, let's begin. So by show of hands, let's do a quick survey. Is your role or team currently impacted by the economy? Okay, holy crap, that's like almost all of you. All right, is your company currently in the process of either decreasing or reducing your hiring efforts for the remainder of this year? Okay, so I'm seeing like maybe 25, 35%. Someone keep me honest, because this is not scientific. Has your sales enablement budget or hiring, right? Just like in terms of people you wanted to hire for the rest of this year, next year, has that been impacted due to the economy? Holy shit, crap, so you have to do more with less. How many of you feel that you're being forced to do more this year with less resources, time, or people? Yes. Quiet quitting. So if you think it's harder than it should be to be in sales enablement or revenue enablement, welcome to the party. It absolutely is. This is a tough time. So what I did when I was asked to present at the SEC, and by the way, I'm originally based in New York, I thought about like what would be relevant to all of my peers. And I thought about like when I first started at Own Backup, and I literally started like the month before the pandemic hit. So if anyone remembers like when the pandemic hit, and again, I can only speak from like a New York perspective or a New York City perspective, but it felt like Armageddon, right? Like nobody was taking the subway anymore, everybody was staying home. I think it was like me, the CEO, and like just two other random people that were just continuing to come to the office, and everyone else was working remote. So I had to pivot our entire playbook because the way we were selling before versus the way we had to sell in the COVID era of the time was completely different. And we're doing that again, with this recession, right? We're hearing from a lot of companies, especially if you look at their earnings forecast, right? Like they're saying in their earnings report, like customers are taking a longer time to making purchasing decisions. So as a result, they're forecasting less revenue or reducing their earning goals and expectations for the next quarter, as well as it having an impact on hiring. So how can we, within enablement, do what we need to do to still deliver an impact? So I spent some time interviewing my peers, thinking about like what we're doing within our company in particular at Own Backup, and put together some best practices, and I'll be sharing some stories with you specifically from what we're doing on Backup. Coming up with frameworks is kind of hard, but I wanted to use something that is very synonymous with technology. So if there's anything you need to remember from this presentation, it's FTP. It's not File Transfer Protocol. It's find the pain. And it's typically what we're doing within enablement anyway, right? We're just trying to find the pain. whatever that pain is and just make it a little bit better. But how do we do that in today's situation, for today's economy? So these are some of the dimensions I look at, that my team looks at when we're thinking about sales enablement or revenue enablement. So we're thinking about, and this is like, by the way, not sorted in any particular order. Maybe I should have done that. But anyways, we'll go through it box by box, and we'll use some stories throughout the rest of this presentation to talk about some of these. So we think about it in terms of like process optimization. How do we make the process better from prospecting all the way through renewal? We obviously think about it from an onboarding perspective, so we're still hiring a lot of reps for the remainder of this year. There's also all of our existing reps, what kind of ongoing enablement that we need to do with them to make them better and more productive, especially as we innovate on our existing product portfolio or add new products or new features. We have to think about that. Another lens we think about is from just a new sales optimization. How do we change our messaging or our positioning so that our product today is more relevant and drives more urgency with our prospect based on the current situation that they're in? From a customer success perspective, it's not just also about the renewal, but how do we continue to show impact, show value? So not only are we making it easy for our customers to renew, but also increase their spend with Own Backup. And then last but not least, all things tech and tools. Where can we optimize? So if we look at it in this slide, and I'm going to go back and then go forward, I've color-coded this a bit to kind of show you where we've pivoted within Own Backup to focus on prioritization. And I don't know why I didn't color the tech and tools part, but that should be yellow. New hires. We've been reiterating on this since I've started over 2.5 years ago. We've made the decision, at least for now, we're going to stop reiterations here. Our new hires, when they join Own Backup, they're absolutely set up for success. If there is any moment where we can do some reiteration that's like quick or simple or not that high amount of effort, we'll do it. But it's not a focus or a priority right now. On the existing hires, though, it absolutely is. And we'll go into that in a second. Our process optimization, this is absolutely where we want to focus our time and energy on, especially from in terms of like where can we reduce any friction in that sales process to make it easier for our reps to do what they need to do. Our SDRs, our AEs, our solution engineers, and our CSMs. From a new sales perspective, we want to optimize there as well, but that is going to be a huge effort. Like, we still want to go after new logos, as do all of you, and bring them on board. But where we're going to spend more time and effort in this quarter and beyond, versus where we have anywhere else, is on the expansion sales. I think maybe like all of you, we pretty much took it for granted, but we want to make more of a conscious effort here. What can we do with our existing customers to, again, show value, show impact, reduce the risk of churn, and more importantly, grow their spend and their relationship with Own Backup year over year, or whatever that cadence is. So when we're talking about how we solve the pain, well, first there's find the pain, and then there's solve the pain. When we're talking about solving the pain, we're not looking to do something disruptive, right? So we're not trying to rip or replace anything, because that is very disruptive. What we want to do is drive incremental improvements. So is anyone familiar with this term Kaizen? Awesome. I see some hands up. If you're not familiar with it, it's this Japanese philosophy, and it's summed up in one word. Basically, all it means is driving continuous improvement, right? So what is that improvement we can make, even if it's a 1% improvement, where it's going to have a long-term and meaningful impact? And if you can strive to drive those continuous improvements, again, whatever that cadence is, week over week, month over month, quarter over quarter, over the long term, you're driving a significant impact to your business. So this is what our team believes in. This is what we're striving for. And again, in some rare cases, you are absolutely trying to rip something out and be disruptive. We did a lot of that when I started, but from a maturity perspective, at least within Own Backup, we're running a very mature organization right now. So this is absolutely the lens that we strive for making things better, and we do it in the spirit of Kaizen. And by the way, as I go through these examples, please, please, please interrupt me. I hate lecturing, even though I do that as a side profession. I do like my students, I do like my work colleagues to interrupt, and I would love for all of you to interrupt. So as we go through some of these examples, if you have any questions, just raise your hand or just scream at me, and we'll start a dialogue going. All right. I've never actually watched this show. Has anyone ever watched it? Is it? Does it spark joy? So I think this is really important, and it's not something you're consciously doing ever, right? But when was the last time any of you just did an audit of your tech and tools and decided, okay, are the tools that we're currently using, maintaining, are these the tools that we want to grow, keep, lose? Have you guys done that recently? Does anyone want to share a story on this topic at all in terms of any decisions you made? Yep.
We're doing it now. I think what we were trying to look for is we found that it's almost making our reps too lazy, that we have so many tools that it's easy to kind of sit back and just wait for something to ping them to go out and hunt. And so because we have a budget that's gotten smaller, we're doing a full audit and like looking at individual users, and it's a whole thing because we have way too many tools. It's not a good situation.
All right, so there's like tool diarrhea in your company. Was that a right analogy? Sorry. All right.
It works.
It works. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I have the opposite.
Then you.
I have the opposite problem. So I'm new to the company, and we have literally no tools. So it's trying to understand what we actually need. There's so much out there. So that's where I'm struggling. I'm a one-woman show. Where do I start? So that's my challenge.
Yeah, I guess the title really should be like keep it, lose it, or buy it.
Yeah.
Right? And we're doing all three at Own Backup. My advice there is think about it from the rep perspective, right? Like in the context of lose it. Like if the tool's gone, are the reps going to miss it? If they're going to miss it, crap, then you should keep it. If you're keeping it, how are you actively maintaining it, right? Because for every tool you have, there's debt and bandwidth you have to be mindful of in terms of, I don't know, it depends on the tool, but you obviously have to maintain it, update it, whatever the tool or platform is. And from a buying it perspective, and we've already bought a tool that addressed our conversation intelligence gap within Own Backup. Well, this is something that we needed, and we didn't have it. And it's something that would help us actually drive or identify more enablement opportunities for our org. And so, yeah, we should invest in that. So it's a balance. And yeah, and again, I've been in your shoes literally 2.5 years ago as a one-person shop. It's not easy, it's not fun, but when I was a one-person shop, and now I'm running an 8 or a 9-person shop, and even today, it's like, are we building things, and especially are we investing in technology or tools that helps us scale, right? Because I love meeting with reps one-to-one. It brings me the most joy in the world. When I do cold calling training at Own Backup, I'm not just teaching reps how to cold call. I will literally pick up the phone with them. We'll find a list of prospects to go after on Zoom Info, and I'm not asking them to do it. I'm showing them how to do it. So I'm picking up the phone. I'm putting it on speaker. It's like Wolf of Wall Street style. And they're all hearing me pitch to the prospect and getting the next meeting. And then they learn by example, right? To do that one-on-one would be very painful. To do that in a group of like 15 or 20, that's scalable. And if I can automate that even further with an LMS or something that's pre-recorded that reps can watch on demand, even better. So even if you don't have a tech stack, I mean, you kind of do, right? Like I'm sure you have PowerPoint or Google Slides, Google Docs or Word. You have Zoom, right? So SharePoint, Sorry. But you have SharePoint. Sorry. But you have SharePoint. That's great, right? So now you can take, look, you have something, right? So you can take those recordings on Zoom. You can take those Word documents, those Google Docs, those Google Slides. Now you could start building out a plethora of content. Things that we've found to scale really well is we've actually taken pitch recordings from our reps, and we've asked reps through Brainshark, which is our LMS, like we'll ask them like, hey, pitch the value proposition or pitch our backup and recover product to our ICP, to one of the personas that we sell to. And then we take like the top recordings and then we throw it onto Google Sites, which is just as great as SharePoint, and boom. Now new hires and existing hires across all levels can see what good looks like on demand. It's not sexy, it's not pretty, but the content is there just in time for people to be enabled, and it scales. Any other thoughts or feedback here? No, we're good? All right. How are you guys liking the presentation so far? 10 out of 10? Great? All right. Oh, claps? Awesome. All right, awesome. I like to do surveys in the middle of the presentation. All right. Process optimization. And I actually delivered a presentation on this at a previous conference. And again, we take this for granted, right? Like they're just sales stages in Salesforce. And as a rep, as a manager, what we want to see is just the rep going from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3. What you may not be mindful of is there's a lot of enablement diagnostics that you can uncover if these stages are properly defined and documented. So when we looked at this, when I started within Own Backup, we actually identified that there was actually several stages that we were missing in our sales process. And the way we identified that was I shadowed our top reps. I shadowed a good chunk of our reps. And what they were doing in reality did not match what was happening in Salesforce. And I brought my findings to senior leadership. I report directly up to the CRO. We talked about it, and we use this term called opportunity resolution. So do the opportunity stages provide the actual resolution to show realistically what's going on within this opportunity? And by the way, this is just like a screenshot I grabbed from Google. This is not an actual opportunity within Own Backup or our Salesforce instance. But like, let's say this is a software company, and you'll see that there's no stage here on demo, right? This seems like normal stages you would see with like any methodology or process, but is the demo happening in the prospecting stage or the qualification stage or the needs analysis or value proposition stage? If I'm a CRO, there's no way I can say with 100% confidence where and when did we actually do the demo. And again, I'm speaking in the lens of tech sales, but in tech sales, you also do something called a proof of concept or a trial, right, where the prospect is actually using or playing with your product, usually post-demo. There's no proof of concept stage here. So if that's not here, then I don't know how good are we in terms of doing a proof of concept and what that conversion rate is to the next stage. And if that stage is not here in Salesforce or whatever CRM you're using, guess what? You can't do any diagnostics, and if you can't do any diagnostics, then you can't enable. Thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
With Salesforce usage, I feel like there's always a human factor. Like you said, 100% certainty. Well, that is the assumption that your hundreds, if not thousands, of sales reps are correctly filling out which stage and when it happened and how long it was in that stage. How certain? Well, two parts to my question. Number one, can you fix that? And question number two is, how certain can you ever be when it's up to the individual users to accurately update CRM?
If I'm speaking honestly, and I think I have, look, it's a pain, right? the last thing I think any rep wants to do is this kind of admin work in terms of like updating stages in Salesforce or in any CRM. But you have to make it easy for them too, right? Like if they have to really think about where their deal is in their pipe, then it's not just a tech and tools enablement issue. It comes down to the stages, right? So like within Own Backup, we make it very clear what is the exit and entry criteria for each and every stage. So there is no confusion. There is no ambiguity. And since it's clear now, really clear, explicitly clear to both the rep and the manager, and of course during those team meetings, during those one-on-one meetings where you imagine like the rep and the manager are going through the total pipeline together, we want to facilitate and make that conversation easy. Hey, you're meeting with Express Logistics? Great. What happened in your meeting last week? And what are the next action items? And I'll tell you this, right? Like I think most vendors have, most companies that are selling, they have like a terms and legal or a legal stage, right? Got to go through the order form and the MSA. We had a rep, and again, no fault of their own, sent out an NDA because we needed that NDA signed, and unintentionally put it in the terms and legal stage, right? Because he or she thought it should belong in the terms and legal stage. But no, you're still in the discovery stage, right? So that was like a great opportunity for just-in-time coaching, just-in-time enablement, and to revisit again like what the entry and exit criteria are, because that could be like a hindsight or whatever, like, oh, that's an easy mistake to make. But because the stages, again, are very clearly defined, like we've enabled that manager to have that conversation with that rep to be like, hey, appreciate you being aggressive here, but if you're putting it in the terms and legal stage where you're clearly or not, like you're setting this expectation to management, like it's about 95%, you're 95% or 90% confident, like this deal is going to close where we haven't even done the demo yet, so let's bring it back here. And that's the impact of having clear stages has to the sales organization. The admin piece, look, I think like I've yet to meet a company that has figured this out, including Salesforce themselves. Like it's always going to be a thing. But again, you want to make it easy, that interaction between rep and manager, so they can have that discussion. And again, they can together identify, oh, I just did the demo. I probably should just still leave it at the demo stage because we're meeting with this other new person next week and we need to do like the second or third demo again. Great, let's leave it there. Awesome. Other thoughts or questions on this? That was a great question. Yes, sir.
Are we saying that like one of the stages is actually like proof of concept? One of the stages is actually proof of concept, or you were saying that like one of these stages is where you align when the proof of concept happens in like a field in Salesforce?
I'm just using this as an example, right? Because again, this is not a screenshot from our instance for obvious reasons. This is something I think this is actually a screenshot from Salesforce, of Salesforce from Salesforce. But if we were to assume that this was a tech company and this was their account that they were selling to, and you have a proof of concept stage, like where would you, if you didn't have it here, and clearly that's a key and repeatable milestone that happens in each and every sales cycle or in the majority of sales cycles, that should be here as a stage. And if I was running enablement for that kind of company, I would be getting buy-in from the CRM team and from the CRO and others to be like, hey, we need to have this stage in here. It's not controversial. It will increase our resolution, which means we will get better data, better insights in terms of how our reps are doing at this repeatable event that happens across each and every opportunity. And then based on what those conversion rates are, we can decide what kind of resources we need to invest. So maybe we need better tooling for the POC stage, or we need better documentation for the POC stage, right? There's like a million questions you can ask, but you can't ask any of it if it's not a stage in Salesforce, right? And again, think about the situation we're in. It's a downturn economy. Well, I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like I read the New York Times one day and it's like, world's blowing up, and then the next day it's like, oh, the economy's great, hiring's at an all-time high. So like, I don't know what to believe, but this is the time to reflect back, right? And it's hard, right? Because every day, every hour, there's like some fire drill you need to address. There's some training that needs to happen. There's some new hire that just started, or some new product or new feature that's being launched, and you kind of forget about these basics, right? So I'm just doing my part to get you all to think back to some of the core things we take for granted, right? Again, we assume this is it, and we never want to look at this ever again. But hey, let's look at this again. Let's look at what our reps are doing on the field, especially today. Have the stages changed due to the economy? I don't know, but let's just ask that dumb question and get revalidation. Are the stages correct? Or is there an opportunity to add more resolution? You can never, maybe you could have too many stages, but the more stages you have, the more resolution you have as well. If you have one stage, you have no resolution, right? It's just like prospecting to closed won or closed lost. Questions? Thoughts? We're in agreement? Disagreement? I'm happy to debate. All right. All right. So as it relates to stages, here's a dimension we use regarding sales optimization. We use this framework from Toyota. So definitely check out like the 5 whys, and happy to share the deck with others. I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name, but Mr. Ono from Toyota came up with this methodology. It's basically the 5 whys. And you're literally asking why 5 times. I would never do this with a prospect, but in terms of trying to identify what the critical issue is, let's ask why 5 times. So especially in the situation we're in now, how are our best reps still performing? What are they doing so well? What did they pivot to in their sales process that's enabling them to be successful? Are they using new content? Are they not using any content? Did they create content on their own? Did they reframe our messaging, our pitch? What are the reps that are not doing well right now? What are they doing, or what are they not doing? All right? And why are they not performing? Let's ask why 5 times. Boom, 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 right? If we peel the onion, we'll identify what that root cause analysis is, or what those critical issues are. Leads may be taking longer to convert. Why is that? Is that based on our current tech stack? Is it based on how we're responding to those leads? Do our buyers have new expectations or requirements, right? I don't know about how your respective companies are buying software for your organization, but we are now doing more scrutiny with vendors that we're looking at, that we're engaged with from a buyer perspective. So our procurement team to our CIO, more people are involved, more people are asking questions. Is this a nice to have versus a need to have? Is there another tool that we have in our tech stack that can do 70, 80, 90% of what this vendor is proposing? If that's the case, that buyer, that buyer knew that, you think their sales process would change a bit? You think they would approach how they position their product differently, or how they want to engage the different stakeholders within Own Backup? Absolutely, right? Questions on this, or does anybody want to add any thoughts to this?
Do you have some, I don't know, insight into, we are more strategic with the business we go after, so sometimes this leads to, So in trying to be more strategic in the business you're going after, sometimes you have to have some harder conversations with your sales reps. In a downturn economy, we're trying to make more money, but is this the kind of business we want to go after? Maybe this is not the great, best play for us. Kind of maybe just some guidance on, being consultative partners to, a salesperson that's trying to make their number, but in the long run, the resources and the things that we're going after to chase this or to nurture that account after the fact are really actually draining.
Yeah, so this is something this is a topic my team and my leadership, we actually spend a lot of time on. So I think what you're talking about is like white spacing or identifying like the top or the strategic accounts to prioritize and go after. And so if I'm trying to do that type of diagnostic with a rep, the first question I'd be asking is like, why are we going after that account? Like, what makes them so special? What's their situation, right? Are they growing? Are they not growing? Is there something we saw in a recent press release or in a news article that you felt that we should prioritize and go after them? Who are we going after the right persona in that account or personas? If so, confirm with me. Can you tell me who those personas you're reaching out to? Okay, great. You're reaching out to the, let's say, VP of IT. Ideal persona, great. Let's take it a step further. What did you send to him or her? What did you, and how did you send it? Was it email? Was it LinkedIn? How did they respond? Did they respond? Do you feel like we hit the mark with your messaging? Was it too long? Was it too short? Did we not hit on a thread that would have been more relevant to them? I've been instructing reps on my team actually to, because at least to give you context with Own Backup, we help companies protect their data in the cloud, and we specifically support Salesforce, Dynamics, and ServiceNow. And Salesforce is our bread and butter, basically. Any company that has Salesforce typically has sales reps. So, hey, before we call, let's say, the CRM manager or the VP of IT, why don't you call the sales rep first? Because there's plenty of them, and you'd be surprised how much information they'd be willing to share with you, right? Like what integrations they have with Salesforce, how they're using their Salesforce, what kind of pain they have using Salesforce. So that way they have that information and they're armed to send a more personalized, relevant message to our ICPs, who will then be more likely to respond and take a meeting with us. All right, so I use this phrase with our reps, like, are we slowing down in terms of our initial prospecting so that we can speed up later in terms of when we get to discovery, demo, and so on? We should do that, right? It's more work, it's more effort, but that's how we're setting up our reps to be successful. And look, some accounts may not be a strategic account, like just because they have, they just raised their series whatever, or they just got acquired, or they just, landed a great logo that's going to drive this much new incremental revenue. Maybe that's not the ideal customer to go after right now, right? Does that answer your question? Okay. Other questions or thoughts? All right, cool. I've never actually read this book, but when I was looking for GIFs, this was the perfect one I found. So I just need to throw that disclaimer out there. I've never read this book, and I can't endorse this book at this time. But expansion sales, huge, right? Going after new logos, it's taking longer, right? We're seeing it within Own Backup. We're seeing it within other companies. So what can we do with our existing customers, right? So these are questions that we're now asking and doing more enablement efforts on, right? Orchestration, right? There's so many touch points that an existing customer can have. An existing customer can be pinged by an SDR, by an AE, and by a CSM. How are we orchestrating that effort? All right, because the last thing any customer wants is to be pinged by the same company from 3 different people. Not a great experience, right? Do we need to revise our comp plan or just our process in order to reinforce that strategy from existing logos, right? Do we need to update our playbooks? Do we need to update our process, right? Do we need to make it clearer for strategic accounts or for enterprise accounts, maybe versus SMB accounts? How is marketing supporting us, right? What are they doing or what are they not doing with existing logos, right? In terms of their messaging, of their outreach, and what kind of content is being sent from our marketing tools versus maybe something from the product itself, because you can do like in-app marketing. or in-app sales enablement. I don't know if that's the right term, but in-app promotions to drive sales. So are we being mindful of those touch points as well? Because if they're doing it, then maybe sales should maybe slow down a bit and take a step back. And is there any kind of friction that's driving, that can impact our relationship for growth? So like so I'll give you an example of like what we're doing now. We're building, we have multiple like customer advisory panels or groups, but we're building one specifically for expansions. So we're building out a panel of customers where the theme and focus is on how do they want to be upsold to? How do they want, in an ideal perfect world, other reps or whoever it is reaching out to them for the intent and purposes of educating them on new and relevant offerings that would have an impact to their business, right? You would be amazed what customers are willing to share with you, right? Prospects, not so much, right? I don't know if you ever like pitched a prospect your pitch and they never wanted to have another meeting with you and, hey, can you just give me like 5 minutes of feedback so I can be better next time? Like it's never happened. But with existing customers, they want to see you be successful, right? They want to share that input and feedback with you. One thing I've always made it a point since day one of Own Backup, we do monthly boot camps in person. We fly people from all over the US, all over the world, to go through an intensive 5-day enablement program. Every boot camp, we have a live customer present, and it's always a different customer for every boot camp. But why? And I do that because seeing a case study is one thing, seeing a white paper is one thing, but to actually have a customer present and share their story, their impact, and to create a forum like we have now, where you can ask questions and hear their input, and there's no like restrictions. Or we don't set any expectations on what a rep can or cannot ask. So they'll ask questions about, why did they wanted to buy from our rep, right? Like, what is their preferred way of being prospected to? From, what's your favorite feature about, the product or products that they bought from Own Backup? Like, that's very intangible, right? And again, the biggest thing is like getting that story that you've just got directly from that customer so that you can share that story authentically with the next prospect or person you talk to. Huge deal. So these are the things that we do to again help us do diagnostics. Am I out of time? Crap. How much time do I have left? Minus 9 minutes. Jesus. All right, I'm gonna stop here. Any questions? I'll throw it back here on this slide. But any thoughts, feedback, overall consensus on any of this? Were the examples I shared helpful? Yes. Awesome. All right, well, thank you. All right.